Yes, I do.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Come on in. As you're coming in, you'll see that there is a discount code for Ann's Pattern Company, 20% off. So you can check out the link.
My first sale, my first discount I've ever applied to my store before. So y'all are extra special.
That is extra special. And you have a brand new pattern coming this weekend, correct?
Yep, Friday.
Friday.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk more about that in a minute. But first, before we get started on that, if you will pop into the chat, because we love to talk with you and we love to know that you're there, and it's so much fun to read what you have to say. Will you pop into the chat if you're wearing something handmade today and what it is?
Today I am wearing 100% handmade, except
Underwear.
for this old pair of shoes. These are not. The duct tape was my DIY, but it's already broken. So
very nice. So tell us about the shirt you're wearing.
So this is my brand new pattern coming out on Friday. It's called the Endless Summer Shirt. And the idea is that it's made out of a super, super lightweight fabric. It's got this really beautiful pleating and a yoke detail. It's got pleating all along the back. And there's no set-in sleeve. And it's just nice and loose. It has a great split side seam. I like to tuck my shirts in, so it's a great tuck-in shirt. But yeah, I've been playing with this design for a couple years and have really enjoyed wearing it in my own everyday, my own wardrobe. And so I'm excited to put it out there in the world and see other people getting to wear it.
That is exciting. And I'm a dress wearer. That's like all I ever wear, unless I'm wearing pajama pants and a tank top. So I'm looking at this dress and I'm like, this shirt. And I'm imagining it as a dress.
I know. I've actually had a couple of people be like, I'd like to make this in a dress. And I'm like, I'd like to see you do that. And because I'm a pants person, totally. Yeah. And so that's the fun part about putting patterns out there and seeing the way people can run with it. Because of course there's so many different ways to go with a pattern. And I'm only one mind thinking in one direction, or my style. And so that's always really fun to see the variety that comes out.
Right. So now I'm thinking that I want to buy your pattern and I want to expand the bottom and lengthen it and then put shearing because I like fitted as well. So I like things that tuck in. But, I only wear knits and sometimes I think that maybe I should wear something that's not just a knit.
I love knits too, so I get it.
Yeah. So now I'm thinking about this. We'll see what happens here.
Love to hear it.
So what do we have over here? We have, my computer is getting a little bit, sorry about that. Martha says, hey, Ann, I'm a Durhamite. What does this mean?
That's where I'm from, Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. I don't know. I have no room to talk because, we're Michiganders. So it's like, we've got all this. I'm claiming the whole state.
Durhamites, yeah.
I like it. Brooksann's wearing her jeans that she made. Steph is wearing a peppermint pocket shirt. Skirt, excuse me. Martha's also says she's wearing her new Nico top. Jan's wearing a t-shirt she made. Jerry has a cowl neck blouse on. Pam is wearing pants and a t-shirt she made.
Nice.
Yay. I have a little glitch.
We're in good. Yeah.
Give me 1 second here. My right hand here says that she's having a glitch and I somehow have to find her and co-host her. Give me 1 moment. So, and while we're waiting for me to get my stuff together here, tell me about the patterns you have available.
Yes. So the pattern business is a new business for me. I actually started it this week last year. The actual date went by and I forgot to celebrate, but I launched my first pattern a year ago called the Magic Pants. And that was definitely through encouragement of my local fabric shop who really said that this is something that should be offered and kind of helped encourage me in that direction because I don't come from a home sewing background. and I'm not used to working with commercial sewing patterns. And so I had to do a lot of extra education to understand what home sewists were looking for. And the magic pant is a pant that is really what I was looking for to wear. And it has a adjustable waistband situation for people that fluctuate in their waist, like I do.
Right.
And it's still a tailored looking garment, but really comfortable. My favorite thing is in the winter, I'll put my pajama pants on underneath it. And so you're just like, I'm just winning at life, right? I get to look nice and I'm wearing my pajamas, you know. And so it's been out for a year. It's really been popular. I've been really humbled by the response. People tell me, you know, thank you for this gift, which is such a, you know, sometimes it's hard to think outside of yourself and the way that people are reacting to what you're doing, especially when you work for yourself alone at home.
Yeah.
And so I've been really excited with the response and how that it's out there in the world. And so now it's just, now I figured out how to do it. So now I'm just like, okay, where's the next pattern? You know, so now my goal is I have, you know, to just start releasing more patterns now that.
Very nice. And you froze up on me. We'll see if Ann comes back.
Am I here?
There you are. Yep, you are
Okay.
back.
Country life.
I know, right? All right, let's do a quick introduction and then we'll go and we have all sorts of questions for you. We have questions about this beautiful space we see behind you. We have questions about country life. We have all the questions. So I don't know if we have enough time. So let's do an introduction. So this is the Break the Rules of Sewing series. And those of you who've been here for the last week and a half know that it's been so much fun. It's been so fun to get to talk to all these different makers and to have all of you here as an audience and asking questions and sharing your wins and sharing what you're wearing. And it's been the most beautiful experience. And I'm really glad that you're here. I first drummed up the Break the Rules of Sewing series because as a sewing teacher, I often saw folks be kind of stymied by the idea that they didn't know how to do something right, or they didn't want to mess it up, or they didn't want to waste their fabric, they didn't want to do it wrong. And I wanted to just really explore the idea that there are so many ways to do things, and that there are so many things that people hold as precious beautifully and like discard. And they're like, this is not what I do. And I want people to see that that's different for all of us and that we all still have success. Like I'm wearing a dress I made and Ann's wearing clothes that all clothes that she made, even her duct tape shoes to some degree. And so there's so many ways to go about this. And that's really what I wanted to talk about. And I also wanted to talk about the ways in which we can elevate what we're doing to get us to the next level, whatever that might be. And we all have different ideas of how that is. And that's been super fun. Let's take a deep breath here. So to that effect as well, I wanted to share with you, we did have somebody who had to step out of the lineup. You probably saw that. Ray from Made by Ray had to step out. She had some family things happening and just busyness. So I'm going to do a solo episode with you tomorrow, which I'm very excited about because I love to connect and I love to talk. And then on Friday, we are going to bring back several of the guest speakers that have been here for the last week and a half, and we are going to talk about the fun, special little things that we do on our projects that make them feel extra special for us, whether that's like fine-tuning the fit or a secret little poem embroidered in the pocket, whatever that might be, right? So these ways in which we sort of elevate our own making and also do a bit of a show and tell. So I'm going to ask all the speakers to bring, they don't know this yet, they're going to hear this right now. I'm going to ask them to bring a project or two that they want to share and maybe their favorite tools. I'm going to ask you, as people coming, as people attending, to also bring something to show and tell. So it's going to be this big bang celebration at the end of our series. That's on Friday.
Party.
Exactly. So today we have Ann Tilley with us. And Ann is a textile artist, a clothing designer, a garment maker, and she's a degree in fashion and fiber. Her business right now, as she mentioned, is she's got a pattern making business with a couple of different patterns out in this new shirt she's going to launch on Friday, the Endless Summer, which is a really fun name. And so are magic pants. And like, who's naming your stuff? Are you naming your stuff?
The magic pants, when I kept trying it on my friends, they kept saying, this is magic, those are magic pants. So I didn't name that.
Nice.
So that was totally them. But then, of course, after you name the first one, then it gets that much harder. But okay, I got to follow this up, you know. So
Right, right. It's like I'm a horrible namer. Like Brooks and Camper actually named the series for me, which is beautiful. And then like as a kid, all my cats were like Fluffy and Gray.
yeah, I mean, my business is Ann Tilley Handmade because that was the only name I could think of as my own name. So
That's a great one. That's a great one. So, Anne, tell us about your journey. Tell us how you went from, well, maybe even go all the way back. We'll try to keep it brief if you can, because we have a lot to ask you. But think about like what prompted you to go into fashion and fiber in college, and then also how that brought you to right now making the endless summer shirt.
yeah, yes, I will try to be brief. So I kind of got independently obsessed with the sewing machine early on, and I accredit it to the fact that I had a 1970s version of the Reader's Digest Guide to Sewing on my bookshelf as a kid. And I was
Yeah,
completely enamored by the like retro projects in the back and just the fact that they're like, oh, they're telling you how to do it. And I was always a kid that was crafting or drawing. I was not really a toy person. And so the best gift my mom gave me was to let me take the sewing machine into my room and play. And she didn't understand why I was interested in it. I'm a millennial, so it was like really out of fashion, unpopular. There was not a home ec anymore.
right.
And I just independently started just getting obsessed with the sewing machine. And in high school, I found a book at the library about how to draft your own patterns. And I started drafting patterns in high school, which just seems wildly ambitious, but that's the beauty of ignorance and being a kid. And so I was really into painting and drawing, but I felt like I just was obsessed with fashion. And so I jumped into fashion at Savannah College of Art and Design, that also has a lot of art classes in Savannah, Georgia. And that was a great place for me to be. Although by the time I graduated, I felt like I hate the fashion industry. I don't like the people. I don't like my peers. This doesn't feel like me. And
Right.
so, and then also 2008, the financial collapse was when I graduated. So the idea of a conventional job or someone giving me a job felt very like unreal. So I knew I was going to probably do my own thing
Yeah.
in some way. And so, I wandered around aimlessly for a while. I taught beginner sewing lessons, which was like not very exciting right when you graduate to do something like that. But then I landed my first career job at a jean factory here in North Carolina, like a small boutique jean factory where I worked my way up to being the sample maker. And I got to work under a master pattern maker who had been at Levi's for 35 years. And that was highly, huge for me to be able to work with her, and really taught me how to make a pair of jeans, wouldn't allow me to use straight pins, and I had to sew everything with all 10 fingers. And watching her do the patterns, even though you graduate from college fashion school, you still don't really feel like you know how to make clothes, and you're not necessarily making clothes for yourself. And
Yeah.
so watching her and being in that space and really having to make jeans every day is a really good way to get unafraid of making jeans, because someone's expecting you. I used to
Yeah.
physically sweat when I had to sew the zipper fly, but so when I
Most
left,
of us probably still do. I mean, most of us do as well. I mean, not still, yeah.
and so then when I left that job, I bought my first, like, I invested in my first machine. So I bought an industrial single needle machine. I just bought the exact one that I used at the factory because I loved it so much. And an industrial serger. My husband built me a work table, and I set up my first home studio. And the thing that upset me about the jean factory was that they had this kind of environmental sort of bragging rights that they would have, saying like, this is what we do for our low carbon footprint. And so when I started working there, I was like, yes, I'm going to work for this company that feels like they're caring about the environment, and they have an accountability morality to their business. But then when I got into the company, I realized that was just a marketing strategy. And so I realized that like this environmental angle was really important to me, the sustainability angle. And so when I quit there, I decided I was, I didn't want to support fast fashion. So I said, okay, I'm going to only make my clothes from now on. And it's going to be a personal challenge that if I need something, I have to make it. So from that point on, I started, I stopped shopping. I made some changes. And really that time where I just was practicing in my studio was huge for me to develop my pattern making skills and my sewing skills. And from there, I worked at another knitwear factory. It was actually more like a studio. And they were very much using organic fabrics. It was made to order, natural dyes. And so they were walking this environmental walk, and it felt much better to work at a place that felt more in line with my like values. And it was all knitwear. So I got really good at threading a serger and, working with knits. I worked in every aspect of that studio. My favorite being working in the dye studio for 2.5 years. And I got to do about 30 dye baths a week, which was a really fun, talk about the thing that you can spend your life learning is like dyeing fabrics. So that was exciting to get to do that.
Were they using natural dyes, or were they using like porcelain dyes, or what were they doing?
It was like 2/3 like Procyon MX dyes, and then about 1/3 natural. But we had like a big indigo vat that was always running. I love the indigo vat. People complain about how stinky it is, but I love the indigo vat. Right. So yeah, so I got to learn about both of those things. Mm-hmm. And then I started my own made to order or made to measure clothing company around that time too, where I was getting to really be the designer. And that was really formative for me to develop my design taste. And, I wasn't charging enough because I wanted to be affordable and I wanted to be ethical and so that was good practice. And then the beauty of starting a business is that you can also choose when to close a business. So it was like, okay, I tried that. Yeah. And then I started a new business with a business partner, and we went for like a higher end line. Again, I was designing the garments. We were working with custom printed fabrics, and she was printing the fabrics. And we actually were financially successful, but we basically built this business that was bigger than we could handle. And so that's another lesson about building a business of like, oh, we built this business model and we need $100,000 and 6 employees. And It was like, oh, this isn't the life I want. Right. So sometimes your dream job, it doesn't match your dream life. So we closed that. And then around that time, I got tapped to teach a jean making class at my local fabric shop. And that's what really got me into garment teaching.
Oh, Anne, we're losing you there for just a moment. Wow. Oh, you're back. So we lost you if you can hear me, you got asked to teach a jean making class.
Okay, am I there? I'm back.
Yep. You're back now.
Okay. I have to move into my, okay.
So we lost you when you were letting us know that you began teaching a jean sewing class.
Yes. So I'm teaching garment making, and I really enjoyed that. And that was so much more pleasurable than teaching beginner sewing, although I still love to teach that. And then I started teaching national workshops where I'm doing like week-long and 2-week-long. And that was when I really started meeting peers in the industry that really helped me finally quit my day job at the knitwear studio and really kind of seek my own adventure. And so then indoor, outdoor. So then I started the pattern business a year ago this week, thanks to the support of my local fabric shops who were saying, this is a really cool pattern, you should put it out there. The magic pants is the first pattern I started with, and it was a garment I had designed for my previous clothing line. So it was going to be, produced and sold. and we closed before we released it. So I'm so happy to be able to like get
Yeah.
it out. So
It would have felt like, I don't know, just languishing there in the corner otherwise.
right, right. Only me getting to wear it. It was kind of like, and you know, in terms of the environmental component, just the idea of teaching people how to make their own clothes and making these garments with intention just feels so right with like where I want to be.
Yeah.
And you know, trying to sell $200 shirts didn't feel right to me. But teaching you how to make your own luxury clothing, you know, I
Yeah.
love that for.
Very nice. Very nice. So in your bio, you have a statement. I told you I was going to say this before we even got on the show. And I want you to talk about what this means. I'm going to read this, and I quote, "Your teaching combines disciplined production techniques with home sewing freedom and playfulness." What does that mean?
Well, I think I kind of have a deeper perspective on what I mean by that after watching and listening to the other people that have been on this podcast for the last week and a half.
Yeah.
Um, you know, in production sewing, you know, you have to adhere to the standards of the business, to your employer, to the head designer, to what the customer is expecting. So, you know, like your, you know, top stitching has to be a certain width and it has to match these certain things. And ultimately, even if you do something differently and you think it's great, you still have to adhere to these other people's standards. So I found that when I finally got to sew for myself, there was such a freedom in the way that I was sewing because I could say, this is good enough, or this works for me, or I can make this work. You know, like I can, you know, like the shirt's too tight, I'm going to just cut a strip of fabric and add it to the side and now it's big enough. And so when I teach, I feel like I show all these kind of production techniques that I learned that I think are really valuable. But then I also say, you know, we can pick and choose what's important to us for our specific project. And, you know, you are the ruler of your destiny. So that's sort of my thought on that.
Nice. I like that. That's good. So when you are going to make something for yourself, like not for the business, not for Christmas present for anyone, not for anybody else, but just for you, what does that journey generally look like?
Yeah. So I tend to be very concept oriented. So it's usually, you know, it can be as basic as I need a pair of black leggings, or it could be, you know, like this endless summer shirt. It was like, I want a shirt that feels very light and loose off my body when it's really hot outside, but I want to look put together.
Yeah.
And so I'll start with some sort of concept in that mind and then work from there. And then I'm, you know, a pattern maker. So I'm always immediately starting on paper. And I do draw a lot, but I don't tend to sketch anymore because one of my life goals has been to set up a situation where when I'm inspired, I can jump on something and not have to be like, oh, well, I have to do this, this, and this before I can do this. So I don't even have to worry about sketching because I can immediately jump into my studio and start. So um, last week I made a shirt for myself where do you know that designer Roberts Wood out of the UK?
I don't.
She's like a kind of a higher fashion designer, but she started doing these like kind of low waist home sewing patterns where it's all patchworked and it's like highly computer engineered. It's very interesting. You have to take a look. So I bought one of her designs because I didn't understand how she was even making the pattern.
Mhm.
And so I made her shirt. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, now I understand how she constructed this patchwork. So let me construct my own patchwork using her concept. But instead, I made it like a knit checkerboard, black and white, you know,
Yeah.
scratch thing. And I just immediately dove into the paper. And I feel like I'm very like wild and fast in the way that I cut and sew. But I think it's more just that I've had enough experience now that, and I have a studio that's set up really well that I can just kind of dive in. Because if I don't start and finish a project, like I usually can start a finished project within a couple of days. If I let something languish, like I will never pick it up again. So for me, it's very much like an immediate, like I've got to get through it.
Right.
And I can show you the whole pile of like unfinished winter clothes that are clearly I'm not going to wear. You know, it's 82 degrees today, so
Right. Right.
you know, um, So I like to work very immediate, and because of my production background, I've gotten really fast, and that's a fun side effect of having worked in production for a long time. So I'm usually zipping through projects.
Yeah. So when you said earlier that you have set up your life so that I just saw the comment about the birds and I was thinking this.
Can y'all hear them?
They are awesome. And Anna and I were talking beforehand because I wanted to have my door open because I'm looking at
Yeah,
her beautiful door is open, right? And
have
I'm
my
in,
door open.
and it was like 38 last night, so it's like 50 degrees right now. And so I'm like, this is a little chilly. So I just set it up and she's like, it's 80 here already. I'm like, oh my goodness.
I'm
It's
like
so
sweating. Yeah.
yeah, that is awesome. So when you said that you wanted to set up your life so that you could just jump into a project and not have all these hurdles to get through to be able to start something, what did that ended up looking like? Like, what does that look like for you?
Um, well, basically, I just built a tiny house so that I don't have to clean. And I married a man who can cook for me. And no, I'm just abandoning everything else in my life. Just no.
Yeah.
For me, it was just like always having my machines out and ready. Because I remember that time in my life where I'd have to put the machine away. And I was like, I want to get to that. And then now I have this beautiful, like huge table, as you can see, that's always, I usually keep it pretty clear. And then and so, just having, again, like with production, you really learn how to be efficient in the way you lay out your your space and where you have your tools, and you think about how you're moving in a space. So for me, it's just basically having everything out and not having to put anything away.
Nice. Yeah. Have it at the hand, at ready.
Yeah.
Ready. So talk to us about this building, if you can, for a moment here that is behind you, because it's stunning. And or other people are wondering about the same thing.
Yeah. So I definitely identify with just being a maker. Like I'm obsessed with trying to make anything. And so I joke that my life kind of expanded when I started making my own underwear. Like that blew my mind when I realized I could make my own underwear. Like sometimes you just, it's a level of awareness. Like you just don't think about it. It was like, I learned I could make my own underwear. I learned I could make my own deodorant. And then I was like, oh, now I need to make my own house. Right. So then I did build my own house, but let me tell you, that was not for the faint of heart. So there's my tiny house over there up the hill there a little bit. But I knew, so we built a tiny house, but I knew I needed a dedicated space for my studio. So this is an A-frame modular Quonset hut that was actually on the property when we moved here, but it was like, there was a tree growing. Uh-oh, did I freeze again?
Oh,
no.
No.
Okay. Okay, good. I'm paranoid now.
Yeah.
There was a tree growing in the middle of it. There was a bunch of trash. There was this family of skunks living here, and it was like direct. And my husband was like, yeah, we're just going to tear this down, pour a concrete pad, put it back up, close the ends. And I was like, but we took it down one bolt at a time and put it back up. And it is very indoor outdoor, which I love. It can be annoying when you're cutting out silk charmeuse because
Oh. And
I did actually freeze. Okay, there we go. We're back. So yeah, so we put this up ourselves, and it's not perfect. I don't have heat or air conditioning, but it's really great for right now. And then the long-term plan is to build a whole freestanding building just for my studio, and then this will become a garage. So
very nice. So you did freeze right when it seemed like an important thing for us to know. You're sewing silk charmeuse, I think you said.
Oh yeah.
And
well, just sometimes you have both the garage doors open and you're sewing stuff, the wind will come by and just like,
yeah,
I mean, this is on my table this morning, like it's just an indoor outdoor lifestyle here. So, but I couldn't ask for any more because I love being outside and I love sewing. So I like that I get both in the studio.
How big is your tiny house?
400 square feet.
Oh, that's exactly what mine is. I have a little tiny house as well, and it's 400. So I always think of it as like the little house because I'm like, is it officially tiny? I don't know.
I feel like it's a luxury tiny house because we went a little bit wider,
right.
That feet. So
very nice. Excellent. Okay. So
we could talk a long time about that. We'll have that'll be
I know. I'll probably have to have you on the podcast and we can just talk about intentional living because that's really what it comes down to is
Absolutely.
like I love what you were talking about earlier to be very serious here. I love what you were talking about earlier that fine tuning that happens because like you go in a direction and you're like this is great but actually I don't like this part about it. So then you
Hmm.
shift and you're like this is even better and then you shift and like and pretty soon I think you get this really curated life until you change because we do and they're like okay
Right.
it's different and I think it's beautiful to allow ourselves that space.
Absolutely.
So let's do that on the podcast sometime. But for now, I would love to hear about the way that you break the rules, the ways that you sew or that you teach that are really uniquely you or you believe are uniquely you.
Yeah. So this was a funny question because when I first got I read about your theme, I was like, yes, this is so me. And I definitely, when I was a kid, when I was first learning, the people around me that could give me advice were older women, and they would say, this is right and this is wrong, and that's it.
Right.
And being who I am and who I was then was like, why? But why? Like, why does it have to be that way? Like,
Mhm.
can't we just try and see maybe if it? And so I definitely, when I teach, I don't like to box anyone in about it. This is right and this is wrong. And so the way I think about it more is it's more about sewing principles rather than sewing rules, and really understanding the why that you do something so that then for your personal project you can decide, do I need to consider this or can I not worry about this? So
Right.
like earlier this week you talked about teaching your students to like reinforce their shoulder seams on their knits. I never do that. And I remember thinking like, oh, am I doing something wrong? But then it was like, I've been wearing these shirts for years and they look fine to me.
Right.
So like if I do it and it becomes a problem, then I know why.
Right.
But like if it's working for you, then it doesn't mean that you have to do it just because someone says that you have to, or that, I mean, like I would look at commercial t-shirts and be like, well, they're all doing it. They wouldn't have put it in here if they didn't have to do it.
Right.
But then I've kind of found that I don't do that. A lot of the other interviewees have said things that I was thinking, about raw edges. People get all up in arms when you be doing raw edges. So, but I
Like as a
love,
finished edge, you mean, or as an interior?
yes,
Okay.
yes, or yeah. So like earlier this year, I came out with 3 underwear patterns. Basically, I just put out my 3 staple underwears that I've been using for the last decade. And for my high waisted underwear, actually, I think I have a pair. Oh, actually, I'm using them to prop up the video. So for my high waisted underwear, I just leave the top edge raw because you need that stretch and return. And so it was funny because when I put the pattern out there, I was like, I know people are gonna like comment about this, especially because like my grandmother would be so irritated to see a raw edge,
Wait,
but
I have a question about this. So, as a person who sews 99% with knits, right? Like, I find, and I don't, so okay, let me just ask the question. Do you have them put elastic in the top edge, or is it just the
okay,
cut
I'm trying
as
to move that over so you can see it. So for the high waisted, okay, don't fall. Okay. I just do a raw edge. And I did it where the exterior of the fabric is on
Wilson?
the inside. So the knit side is on the inside and the purl side's on the outside. So it rolls in a little bit.
Ah,
And then actually for this particular pair, I did a raw edge here, but I did serge just where the
yes.
liner is attached. So this is literally like the fastest, dirtiest pair of underwear.
Oh, and
And
so
well, they're not dirty. I mean,
like that's good terminology.
not the right word. Take that back. Delete it. Somebody delete it. No, it's just like the quickest pair of underwear to make. And
Right,
but really, the right stretch knit is what's like making this work.
right. So
You
here's why I'm asking this, because like, so I've taught knits forever, right? And one of the things is for a long time I did this, back in 2020, I did a membership for like 18 months where we took all these different core patterns that I made and we hacked them into different things. So when we would like hack the t-shirt pattern into a take, sometimes we leave them raw, but I always end up hating how that raw edge will start to stretch out and become less
know,
I guess have less recovery because it's simply stretching out. Does that happen with those?
Well, these are kind of designed in a way that you're kind of they're already kind of extra tighter to factor in the
Yeah.
stretch of the fabric. And then, I mean, this is just really dependent on the fabric choice that you're making. But I mean, these will probably last for about 5 years
Which
before
is
the. And this is kind of a thicker knit. So
yeah.
I wear these sort of like compression-y, like they kind of have like a hold me in vibe, but they're just a cotton hemp organic.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I feel like the hardest thing with knits is just finding the right knit, because even the same stretch fiber contents can react differently. So I think, but yeah, so these seem to be good, but I know what you mean about something maybe more, you know, a neck, you know, an arm opening where you've got that
More
curve.
curvature to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to just do very basic tank tops where I didn't finish the edge, and then that strap just starts stretching out
You're basically
so
like
quickly.
all over. Yeah.
Yeah, then you're like hoochie mama, like by accident in your garden, you know, and so.
It's yeah, that could totally be the link though. Okay, so tell us the other ways that you break the rules.
um, oh gosh, okay, what else do I do? I just, I don't know, I just like to do my own thing and experiment. I mean, I honestly feel like the older I get, I feel like each project is an experiment.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like I know a lot, I feel like so many fabrics can react differently that I think I come to it even more with a curious mind, where I'm just like, well, we'll see what happens, you
Yeah.
know, and just like let it be what it is. I definitely never make a muslin, and every so often it bites me in the butt. But I really like to fit as I make a garment.
Mhm.
So, and I hate making decisions. So I will, you know, half cut out a garment and then I'll just like leave something way too big just so that I can just start sewing and start fitting it on my body and adjusting as I go. So definitely the patterns that I'm like selling with my business have an angle of like, try this on halfway through and let's figure out what you want to change now, you know, because I don't want you to get to the end and you've already hemmed it and then realize that you want to shorten it. So I definitely don't have patience for a muslin. And also it's like, I feel like once I finish the muslin, then what do I do with it? Do I just throw it away? And I think it's more of the waste
Yeah.
thing where I'm like, I made this for nothing, you know? And so I think it's more just my hatred of waste.
I can relate to that 100%. I'm a fast sewer as well, and I've been trying to slow it down. I've been trying to, I took Brooke Sand Camper's course in January, although I've been pattern drafting for a decade or and a half or so. But I wanted to learn from her because she's got a different way of sewing than I do, and I wanted to learn from her, and I wanted to see what that was like.
Wow.
Beautiful. It was beautiful. And I am trying to embrace like the exploration more so and the testing things out in the ways that will feel more like sort of like a scientist, right? Like you're sort of like figuring out how does it all come together. I think that's what is her words exactly, actually. But um I do find it really intriguing. But I also have always struggled with muslin because I'm like, one, I'm wasting fabric. And then two, what do I do with this now? Because I like to make things of utility. And so like all of my making is typically beautiful and of utility. And so it's hard for me to do, it's hard to embrace that. But like certainly I've been listening to the people on the show this last week and a half. And I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, one of my I did like also have a YouTube channel where I share some of my sewing projects. And I did like a year-end recap and I showed this pair of pants and I was like, yeah, I should have made a muslin for this. And then I was like, maybe I'll learn this time, you know. And so I do think there are certain projects that you need to take the extra step and be a little wasteful. Like I've also been trying to dig in with bra making this year, and you kind of have to just make a whole bra and try it on and see what
Yeah.
happens. And so I've had to but the nice thing is it's like less waste, but
Right.
that's been helping me just be like, you're just learning, you
Mhm.
know. And the hard part about bra making is I don't think I've ever had a good fitting bra, so I don't even know
You're
what it's
achieving.
supposed to look like. So.
Right. This is one of my tips for making bras because I have the same thing. Like I already know to do my certain adjustments, and I typically do. Like if I am using somebody else's pattern, I know my typical adjustments. So I'm gonna need to make a full bust adjustment to that bra pattern. It's gonna happen, but it often isn't enough. And so then I have found that I get it close enough when I do my first iteration that I can then just start adding layer upon layer of lace at the top to sort of like fill it out. And then I'm like, okay, the next one, and then I'll fix the pattern so that I do have a good pattern for next time. And then I'm ready for the next one, but I can still wear the other one.
Oh yeah,
If
yeah. Oh, you're
that's
totally
always
wearing
there.
the prototype. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm totally wearing a prototype that I've been working on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the underwire, I didn't. It one of them keeps pushing out, and instead of taking 2 seconds to like just tack it back down, I just keep pushing it back in. What is that? So no,
Well,
I feel like my cups are just like I can't ever get enough cup coverage. It's like, as a full busted woman, it's just like
right. And then
so.
you bend over and you fall out and you're like, this is not what I'm wanting. And I hate fiddly, so I do not want to be stuffing myself back in all day long. I
Right.
know that people in the chat know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're in the right crowd here.
And I think it's really valuable what you mentioned though, is that if you're not going to do muslin, then you have to have a level of like grace with what you have made
Absolutely, absolutely.
and be willing to wear it and be willing to be proud of it and be willing to not be like, oh, don't look at this or tell everyone what's wrong with it, which is what I tend to do. But there has to be that level of grace, and then you can just embrace that as a muslin, as a wearable muslin. And then the
Right.
next one you might shift if you happen to make it second one.
Yeah, you know what? It's something that I've like struggled with is I'll have students say like, "Oh, I don't want it to look homemade,"
Right.
and they'll use that word like it's a negative thing. And I've even found myself saying it that way because it does kind of imply a certain thing. But I'm kind of also like, well, why can't it look handmade? I think at the knitwear studio where I used to work, we the way we would hem every edge was with a narrow hem serger. So every hem was just serged, and it's like the world's fastest, easiest way to hem an edge.
Yeah.
So for her, it was a way for her to sell high quality garments that were, fair labor wages and be relatively affordable to the customer. But a
Yeah.
lot of people would be like, this is wrong. It's not commercial looking. Or people in my classes, this hasn't happened in a while, but some people will be like, it doesn't look like a store-bought garment. And I'm like, well, you're not a store-bought human. Like, you don't have that in crazy equipment. And like, we need to embrace like saying something's homemade should be a good thing. Like, how do we destigmatize that term?
For
Change
sure.
our own mind.
Yep. I agree. I agree. And have that grace to be like, yeah, this seam is wonky and it's perfect.
It's my seam. Yeah.
Right. 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 And because ultimately, even when we're looking at that little wonky seam or that serged edge rather than I don't know, rolled hem or something,
Right.
um, we still are probably we're creating something that's one of a kind that takes a ton of effort and skill to do. And also is probably has better quality generally than what you're going to find and ready to wear anyway. We're just so critical of our.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, my like 100% favorite thing in garment making is when I can make something out of nothing. We have two really wonderful creative reuse centers here in Central North Carolina, and I was happy to hear Taylor say that they had opened one in their space because, like, if I can buy a sample yardage of denim from there and support a local nonprofit, and then be able to make a garment that I can wear for the next 10 years, like, to me, I feel like I'm lessening my impact on the world, but still getting to be the expression of who I want to be and get to be creative, in a gentle way.
Yeah, for sure. And we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to tell you that right now. But our time is about up. Before we jump into the chat and answer the questions, I wonder if you might give us one tip for the listeners, for all of us, that you think is a great way to elevate what you're doing and whatever that means, whether that's artistically, technique wise, whatever that is. And then if you'll share again where they can find you, and I'll put that coupon code in the chat again.
Use it. Yeah, I had a lot of tips. So I'm going to stick with one, and then perhaps on Friday we'll share more. So I would say, exploring using all of your senses when you sew. At the Jean Factory, they wouldn't let me use pins. And Chris taught me that I needed to use all 10.
Oh, and
Okay, okay, we're good. We're back.
Go back
I already
to this. Go back to 10.
So using all 10 fingers when you sew, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't use straight pins when you sew, but if you get really good at holding the fabric, you'll find that you don't need as many straight pins, or you can use it in conjunction with straight pins to really control what you're doing. I mean, we already know that we can use our fingers to kind of help us feel if we're catching too many layers, and so just, being a little bit more aware of what kind of control you can get with your hands. And then, I can hear when my bobbin is running out of thread, because it'll start to rattle a little bit louder. So like, tuning into those little things, can help you just be more present in sewing, but then also start to, improve and go deeper, and, perhaps get into that flow state and just have a great time.
Very nice. Very nice. Those are great. That's great. It's like, you're right. Like, it's tactile. And the more tactile you are with it, the more you can, like, the more control you have right before it goes careening underneath that needle.
Mm-hmm. I also just I tell my students a lot to just focus on the next 4 to 6 inches of what you're sewing, and just work on getting that set up just right, and get through that next couple inches, and then stop and reset and keep going again. You don't have, so I think some people, when you're newer, you're just like pushing the pedal, so, just taking your time. And then also, I think all of us need to be reminded to just enjoy the process. You can enjoy cutting if you just change your mindset and appreciate the journey. And that's something even last week, I was making that Robert's Wood shirt, and I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this, and then I'm going to wear it to this party I'm going to tonight, and I'm going to ugh. And I got to a place where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stop right now, and I'm going to go cook dinner and take a shower, and I allow this to be an enjoyable process and not just rush through it,
Yeah, I can relate to that very much so. The battle of it and the embracing it. All right, so how do they find you? Although I did put the link over in the chat, but how do they find you to check out your patterns and see what you're up to?
So my personal website is antilleyhandmade.com. And my store is there. You can see my textile art that I make and upcoming classes. There's also links to my YouTube channel, where I've been making. The YouTube channel has been really great because it encourages me to do more ambitious projects, because I can share it there. And so you're looking for a little inspiration there. And then it's also a great platform for me to do sew-alongs to go with my patterns. Yeah. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram. I have an Ann Tilley Handmade account that's been my personal account for a long time, which is silly because it's also my business. So I have that. You're welcome to follow me there. And then Ann Tilley Patterns is specifically for patterns. So if you want to be a nerd with me just about that, then follow me there. So, and I have my new shirt is coming out on Friday, and it'll be in print and digital form. So that's really exciting. And then I have 2 more patterns coming out at some point this year. So I've done the photo shoot for that, but I have a knit shirt coming out. I'll show you a sample.
Ooh, this is you've seen it here first.
So it's based on a football jersey, but of course, I'm team plants. So this is a little bit, it's kind of fun because it actually also has a yoke, but it's a knit shirt, and it kind of has a butterfly sleeve. So again, you've got a little space for those of us who sweat a lot. And then the third is a very beginner friendly dress, which is kind of different for me being a pants lady. Right. I'm called throwback dress, and it's actually all cut from one piece of fabric. And I'm excited to share it as I you'll have to tune into the Instagram to get the updates on that. So
okay, we'll do that. Before I ask you these questions, can you swing over and show us the purple version of the Endless Summer?
Yeah. So this is a more clear version of the shirt. So it's got a yoke that kind of comes from the front to the back with pleating at the bottom, and it has a shawl collar here, and then the sleeve is all in one, and then with a scoop hem here that has a facing on it. And this was, yeah, so it's definitely, I'm calling it a patient intermediate. So we'll see how many people I exclude with the word patient, but it does require a little bit of precision. And so I wanted to make sure that people weren't surprised by that.
All right. Okay, here's our questions. Question number one is from Martha. Would be interested to know what your local fabric stores are.
Yes. So Freeman's Creative in Lakewood Shopping Center is wonderful. They're the ones that tapped me to do the jean class back in the day, and they've been super nurturing, helping me with my business. She's great. And then that's in Durham, North Carolina. And then in Winston-Salem, there's Village Fabric Shop, and they're the ones that really pushed me to do the pattern, the Magic Pants. And they're wonderful. They have a little reuse section there. And then Mulberry Silks, which Brooksand talked about in Carborough. So, you know, after hearing your trials with what kind of fabric stores you have in your area, I do feel richer. But I'm convinced my husband that we're eventually gonna get to a place where we're gonna go to New York City every year and go fabric shopping. So and he's down for it. So I'm like, okay, good. Like
that sounds delightful. Like I love being in the woods, right? I live in the woods. I just planted apple trees and peach trees, and which is unique to see how a peach tree is going to do up here in our zone 4, but we'll see what happens. And I love the woods, but like I also love a good city moment or two.
Absolutely. Like retreat back. You know, I like to have a cultural moment and then come back into nature. Agreed.
Very fun. So Jean asks, do you have books you can recommend on drafting?
Ooh, I don't, because I mean, literally the books that I used for college, as you can see, I just use them as weights for my pattern. I like don't even use the books. I mean, for me, really what built up my strength was just repetition. And I remember sleeves being like, oh, and it was like, okay, just do it again. Just do it again. And now when I adjust a sleeve, I don't try to do it the proper way where you slash and spread. I just redraw it by hand because I'm like, I know that a sleeve kind of looks like this shape. So let me just change the shape a little. And so unfortunately, I don't have any good book recommendations, but I do think practice was the biggest thing for me.
I have a couple. So Cal Patch has a book, Pattern Drafting Simplified. It's fantastic, especially if you're just beginning and you want to just do some simple projects. But great projects. So you should check that out. And then also when I first started, probably 12 or 13 years ago, and I'm gonna butcher her name, but it's Adele Magloy, I think is how you say her name. It's something like, I know that they reprinted one. They're old, but she really has a great way of showing how to manipulate a pattern, like how to spread it open and do all these different things with it, slash and spread it. I'm gonna see if I can type it in there. Somebody else might know. It's something like this. I think I've got the last name incorrect, but it's something like that. All right. The next question we have here is also from Jean. What is the fabric content of the underpants and the percentage of stretch? The ones that you showed.
So I typically work with 5 to 8% stretch. I kind of feel like once you start to get 8%, like it gets a little too goosey and then it won't stay on your body. So my preferred fabric is 95% cotton, 5% stretch, but they're not all made equal. I bought some Robert Kaufman stretch cotton, and it would stretch and then it would just stop and just be rigid. And I hated it. But my husband really liked it. So then I just used all that fabric to make him some boxer briefs, and he liked the control, like the controlling feeling. And I mean, the thing is too, is that if you do end up with a fabric that's tighter, I mean, you can always go up a size and see if it works better for you. You have to be kind of open-minded to adjusting in that way. And so I'm not a uniform person at all, but when it comes to my underwear, I just have 10 yards of my favorite fabric and it'll last me for a really long time. Same with my leggings. When I found my perfect legging fabric, I just bought 10 yards of it and I keep it in my studio. And once a year, I pull it out and I make a pair of black leggings, you know? So,
So
definitely explore. Yeah.
So you were saying that 5%, that's when you have like some kind of an elastane or some kind of other substrate in the fabric itself. But what do you know what percentage of stretch it ends up being then? Is it 50%,
Oh,
100%? Do you know what that is?
I have no idea.
No worries.
I can go research. I mean, I can go stretch it and look,
I know.
but
Well,
I've
you
never
can if
thought
you
about
want.
it. I'm breaking the rules by not paying attention to that part.
You are. You are. And you're like breaking my rules. I'm like, oh my gosh, Anne, what are you talking about? No,
Okay.
I love
My ignorance is showing. Dang it. No.
it. I love it. All right. Steph says Anne's YouTube videos are excellent. Carol says, I just ordered the magic pants pattern. Thank you for the discount. Looking forward to a
Thank
little bit.
you.
And
Yay.
Christina says, I ordered it too. We'll have to compare them when we're done. Um,
Yeah.
Nancy asked, do you have online classes?
I don't. I have never experienced that yet. So I don't know if that's something in the works for me.
Yeah.
But I'm open to the wind. So
Great. Great. Brooksanne mentions that you've got an inclusive size range.
thanks, Brooksanne.
And Martha asks Brooksanne, are you sure you didn't train Anne? You guys have so much in common.
That's funny because I feel like I'm always telling Brooksanne, I'm like, we're so different. Like the way that we go so different. And then she'll be like, we're not that different. And I'm like, and it was because Brooksanne, when you were on your interview, Cal Patch made a comment where she was like, I'm the polar opposite of Brooksanne. I was like, not even opposite, it was like polar. It was like, I feel like I'm like a little bit wild and fast in my sewing, but when I listen to Jenny Hassler, is it Jenny Hassler?
Yeah.
When I listened to hers and she was saying she cut on her bed and stuff, I was like, okay. I was like, I'm more precise than that.
We all have these things, right? And I think what's beautiful is like, so I obviously have been interviewing all of you. So listening to you, Cal, and Brooksanne, you guys have some really similar commonalities and then very different ways of getting to those commonalities. So it's interesting to see how that
I mean,
goes.
I've never heard of a pattern maker, like two pattern makers that function the same. You
Right.
know, like that we all use different paper, we store our patterns all in different ways, and it's all an amalgamation of like how we were trained and then what's available and working for us.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I mean, I think that that's empowering to know that there's so many different ways to do things. And I've been trying, especially with teaching, understanding the different ways that other people do things and being more open-minded about trying other people's ways. Because certainly when I was younger, I'd be like, this is the way you do it, you know,
Right.
like, because this is the way this one person taught me how to do this and the way I do it. And I've slowly, like, you know, kind of unlearned that and have been more open-minded.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Let's see. We did have a request for you to share your legging fabric.
Oh, okay. I get it from a place called Kosh off of Etsy. Or at least I did a few years ago when I bought it. And it's a 95% modal, 5% stretch. It might even be a little bit more percent, but it's the modal. And it's just the most gorgeous, yummy, stretchy fabric. And actually, you know, yesterday we were talking about marking tools. And the way that I cut out my leggings is because the fabric is so goosey, right? And stretchy and it's black. So I lay it out and I put my hard paper pattern down, and then I use a quilt pounce to pounce all around the edge of the pattern, and then it leaves a shadow.
Right.
And then I can cut it out, because anytime you try to mark on something super stretchy, it's just pushing it along. And so, and I had a quilt. I used to quilt actually for a few years. And so I had it from that. And so that's a nice little tool. Although you do get, loose chalk everywhere. So you have to kind of accept that.
Right, right. Very nice. Okay. Let's see. Jill says, I'm one of Brooks Ann's students. The Endless Summer Shirt is fab. I highly recommend the pattern in Ann and Brooks Ann's classes. I don't know, I'm struggling here, but I am. Sorry, Brooke.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
And then Christina says, I think Green Line has an undie pattern with raw edges. I haven't tried it, but I really, really, really want to. And I'm going to make some raw edge undies because of you now. Awesome.
Do it. I mean, I do feel like some people are less interested in underwear making than others. But if you can find the right fabric and the right pattern, it can be, you can make 4 at a time and it lasts you for a long while. And, it also depends on what you're coming to sewing for. So, like, I want to make everything I wear. Like, that's a goal. So I want to have underwear that doesn't take too long to make. I'm not going to make the frilly stuff because I'm trying to make daily underwear. And so thinking about, why you're coming to it, and if you don't want to make underwear, that's okay too, but I have patterns if you want
I love it. Roxanne says, we're twins and polar opposites.
I'll take it. I mean, we do both live out in the woods with our sprawling compounds.
Exactly.
In progress.
Right. It looks like Steph put in a link for an Etsy account that has a modal spandex fabric, a jersey knit. So check that out. And then Marjorie says, what was the source on Etsy? Oh, there we go. That's exactly what we just talked about. And Jean says, do you have a bra pattern? Or do you have bra patterns?
That's interesting that you say that because I feel like bra making is still something that but I mean, that could be a potential because I have been making a sports bra pattern that I really like. And then this pattern that I've been working on is silk charmeuse. And I don't know if there's like many silk bra patterns out there. And so I was like, well, maybe that could be my angle is that it's a silk bra. But I think I still feel like I have a lot to learn. Mm-hmm. But
what is the pattern you're using there? Did you draft that or is it somebody else's?
I started with the Fenway bra, orange lingerie. And so I'm learning things like I like, not having the full bridge under the bust. And I like the full cup, full cup coverage. But I've manipulated it pretty significantly at this point, but.
That's what you started with.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Oh, I think I got all the questions. Anybody have a last question before we let Ann go and everybody goes about their day?
I will say another thing about my homemade leggings that has become a new thing for me is I've started adding a gusset into the crotch because that was, God forbid, my thighs rub together when I walk. And I always develop a hole right there. And so now I started creating a gusset. And what it's doing is it's offsetting that seam, that inseam. And so now I don't create a hole there. And the fabric wears out before that hole develops. So that's been, that was a game changer for me and now I'm like, okay, I might have to put a gusset in every pair of pants I wear because my thighs rub together every day. So
gussets. So the next question from Jean is, do you have a video on adding the gussets? Did you do anything on YouTube for that?
Oh my God, y'all. Okay, that's on my list. Actually, my favorite pair of magic pants just developed a hole in the crotch because I was wearing them so constantly. And so I've actually put them to the side to make a video on what I wanted to do for the video was show how to do a gusset initially, but then also how to add a gusset after you've made the garment. Nice. So, and I just made a pair of shorts for my husband and he has the opposite problem where he has no hips or butt and his pants fall down a lot. And so I've started adding stretch gussets into his pants to help him just like because what'll happen is he'll pants will fall down, and then when he goes to walk, he'll tear the crotch. So
Oh,
adding a gusset there that has stretch material so that he can like flex. And
yeah.
anyway, I'm becoming a new convert for gusset. So hopefully I can get that video out. After it comes out, I'm hopefully going to take a little breather from like Adobe Illustrator and play more. I really enjoy the YouTube. It's just, wow, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, she froze again.
Just for a moment there, you did, Ann. Well,
Okay, we're back.
excellent. All right, so we are going to say goodbye though. Ann, it's been so fun to have you, and I look forward to talking to you again on Friday with our panel discussion that we're going to have. Again, those of you who want to come and attend, it's going to be so much fun. Bring a little something for show and tell if you'd like to, your favorite tool, whatever you might want to do. We'd love to talk with you about that, and I'm going to have all the guests do that as well. And then tomorrow I'm going to talk a solo conversation with you and I. So I'll see you
Yay,
then.
thank you so much, Tina. It was great getting to know you more today, and I really appreciate you inviting me to do this.
It was so much fun. Thanks for being here.
Thank y'all.
Bye.
Have a good day.